Good afternoon. This is Alan Gassman, and we're live on Monday, July 2nd, 2012 for the Clearwater Bar Association Lunch Talk. And I'm here with our guest today, Nick Mazeika. Nick has a lot of good knowledge and a lot of great suggestions that we're going to go over. But first, just a couple of introductory things. Karen France always asks us to mention to tune in for Lunch Talk. We'll be giving you the calendar in a little while. We also have the 4-4 show that we'll talk about, and Karen never likes me to show her picture, so you didn't see it here. Next slide, and Janine's going to be sending you the slides if you don't have them already as a separate PDF. Please put August 6th on your calendar for 12:30 p.m., The Future of the Legal Profession with Charlie Robinson. This will be both interesting and practical. October 1st, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Lawyers, presented by Wally Pope. That's going to be very interesting. And November 5th, What Lawyers Need to Know About Surveys, How to Read Them and What to Check. That's going to be an excellent presentation by David Britton from Trent & Kempker. Now, our 4 credit presentations, please tune in July 26th for Linda Chamberlain on elder law essentials for estate planning lawyers. That should be extremely valuable. August 23rd, Tax Planning in an Election Year with Bill Price's PDR CPA firm. September 27, a member of the drafting committee, Tom Wells, is going to talk about the Florida LLC and limited partnership law and strategies. October 25th, we're going to have Joe Korsmeyer back on an ethics-related topic, and so on and so on. So please tell your friends and neighbors all about the 444 show and sign up whenever you can and as many times as you can. Well, Nick, I'm very impressed with your background and the talk we just had, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell our viewers what you're about and what you're going to do today.
Sure. Thank you very much, Alan, for having me. I appreciate it. I always enjoy coming out and doing things for the Clearwater Bar. One of the things is you're all going to have the slides here, so I'm going to make an attempt, try not to repeat a lot of the information that you see on the slides and try to add to it. As it says here, I'm basically a management consultant coming out of the Fortune 50 in my background. And what I do is I now work with smaller firms and small companies and entrepreneurs as an advisor role in helping them figure out what it is they need in order to move their business forward, be that operational or revenue generation or just in marketing communications. I specialize in the internet, and the internet's now become pretty special to pretty much everybody out there, so I kind of fell into this accidentally 20, 30 years ago with just, dealing with another technology that was being added to the pile at the time, and it's obviously grown into being something a little bit bigger than that. But we're going to talk a little bit about the internet and what that means for you from a marketing perspective. And you may have heard this term before, this marketing 2.0 or sales 2.0 or the internet 2.0, and what this all means. And basically it means is we've reached that point of adoption where everybody's using it. You cannot ignore it as part of your business now. I mean, I was just reading some recent Korsmeyer alerts there about the fact that email is now an integral component into your operation. But you can't go backwards. You can't go backwards past the telephone, and now you can't go backwards past the internet. It is part of the play. It is ubiquitous in many different ways. It's not just an operational network. It is also the means where people sit down and enjoy their leisure time as well. Pretty much everything that they're doing now in that space, they're doing on the internet. We've even seen that folks are now getting their television programs more from the internet than they are from the television. So it just goes to tell you where that particular trend is going. So our marketing needs to absorb this new technology. It needs to be encompass what's going on in that space. So a little bit of overview about what marketing is and how this kind of fits in. You basically have 2 forms of marketing out there. You have push marketing, which is where you're projecting your message to the viewer. And you have pull marketing, where the viewer is pulling your message or taking your message from a common resource to learn about you. Why is this important? Well, this is important because besides the tipping point in terms of technology, we have a tipping point now in the type of marketing that's going on out there. It used to be that people would learn about stuff from the traditional advertising, the television commercial being pushed in their face, though this is still important for introducing new products, sort of like blankets with sleeves. I mean, you never would have known that you needed one of those if someone wasn't pushing that message at you. But more importantly, everything is being pulled as an after effect. The control of the buyer now is never been there at any higher rate. I mean, we have basically people walking around with little pieces of plastic that connect them to all the known knowledge in the universe. They're going to look you up. If they take any, regardless of how you're making contact with your potential clients, the pull market here is out there. And not having anything out there can say as much about you as having the wrong things out there about you. So it's very important to realize that we are now in a marketplace where people are going to go and get what they need. They're going to find out a lot more about what you're doing, where you're doing, and where your specialties are. It's a self-serve issue. Cornerstone to this has always been on the internet for the last few years is your website. Your website is where you have been developing a web presence, where you've been connecting, where you've been getting your identity out there. But when it comes to websites, what do we really need to know about them, and what is our involvement? I can't tell you how many firms I'll talk to they got a website in the 80s because they needed to have one, and they haven't looked at it since. Tendencies are that's not going to say a lot of good things about your firm, or it's really even going to be up to date with who you are now. When I state you must be able to update your website, it's more along the lines of while it would be nice that you could actually understand all the technology and go out there and do it, it's more important that as a person involved in your firm's marketing, that you can issue something on a 4:30 on a Wednesday and say, I want this on the website tomorrow morning, and Thursday morning at the start of business, that's indeed what's out there. Whatever mechanism you need to put into place, the website needs to be, and it's the fact that it's changeable and malleable needs to be part of your strategy. It needs to be important. Engage. This is not your passive internet anymore, and the reason I repeated that is you have to be, this is interactive. One of the things, another one of my things that I do here in St. Petersburg is I host a small online radio show on the art of gaming. Gaming has added a level of interactivity to everything that is being done out there that you need to compete against. As a market, it's surpassed even film in terms of revenues for their product. So it is something that's also immersive and is changing the way people look at what they do. So you need to have not just a static listing of who you are, but some sort of interactivity to keep them engaged. And just to keep things even more confusing now about your website and its role that it plays is the mobility factor. We are now starting to reach a tipping point where the majority of people are looking data up online and coming to your website from phones and tablets, not traditional desktop computers. Now, of course, all these percentages depend a great deal on what kind of law you're practicing and who your intended clients are. But you cannot ignore the depth that this technology is going to in terms of how it's changing the way things are done. And at some point in time, you'll be engaging another level of whoever, and will have to be able to respond to whatever connectivity options they may want. As odd as that sounds, is you can't think of your website anymore as some sort of monument or some sort of artistic piece here that's going to stay around forever. Not even the architecture in which your websites are built stay the same. The only constant, it seems, out there is change. It's more important to start thinking these things as what they really are, which is basically marketing documents. And you would never want to be have your firm committed to one marketing document for the rest of its life, you certainly don't want to do the same thing with your website. And you need to move, and you need to keep moving that forward. Alan, I'm just kind of ripping through here. Is there an opportunity for people to ask questions, or will we be getting to some of that later on?
People are always welcome to ask questions by typing into the chat space that they should see, or by sending an email to me or Janine or you. So far, no questions, but I'm really interested in finding out, what is a common denominator website for the people who don't really have a website, and they don't have a great website, and they're being told that they have to spend $5,000 to $15,000 and a lot of time on a website. What's a minimum that works 80% of the time?
Well, and I think that you hit the nail on the head there with the wide range of pricing that needs to be available. And you should be focusing on what it is that you need to do. And we will talk a little bit on in the presentation about, how do I get prepared for this, and what am I doing? And I think that's the point of it. Your website should be a tool to execute what your marketing strategy is. And that's why it needs to tend to be a little interactive, and you need to be able to be participating in it. More importantly is establishing a long-term relationship with however you're providing the website. If you're bringing it internally, that you have the resources to staff it and understand it, that it's part of an ongoing cycle that you'll never be finished with, or that you establish some sort of ongoing relationship with a third-party vendor that's reliable and consistent and can keep you up to date. That tends to be the problem. This is not something that you just buy and you're done with. It is something that will be never finished.
Yeah, it can take a lot of energy. There's no doubt about it.
Now, I think a good point about this is there's so much more to it than just a website, and this is where things start to get confusing. But if we start to bring these pieces together like spokes in a wheel, and its purpose can be a little bit more clear for you. One of the things is you need to, and I love this title here, I came up with it, check your local listings. Most of what's going on right now in terms of searching, and when people either search on their desktop, or more importantly when they're searching on these mobile devices, is this idea of where is this guy in reference to me? So where is my search target in reference to me? So if I'm looking up bankruptcy law, they'll want to know whether this they're going to give you results that relate to where you are, where you're located. And they're going to drive these from data that's obtainable on the internet that's localized, or it's based on addressing. So it's very, very important for a company to go out and check all these local directories, everything from Google Maps to Bing Maps, all the mapping, the standard, the big guys, but the little guys too. I mean, you have lots of local listings out there that the big guys will use to determine your presence. And when all things are, when Google's doing a search and they're trying to see who returns for a search property, someone's asking for bankruptcy in St. Petersburg or bankruptcy in Clearwater, they're going to look out to all the data sets that are available on the internet and determine who they think is basically the most popular. And one of the ways they're going to do it is they're going to say, are they listed on Google? Google's always going to look at their own database first. Are they listed on Yelp? Are they listed in what the latest, I think it's Hotpot is one of their other listing services. And the one who's listed the most is going to be considered the most authoritative, because those are the only one of the factors that they're going to use to search it. So your local listings are very, very important for two reasons. One, you got people looking in those maps for your profession. And two, it tells other aggregates like search directories and other directories that you're out there and you're playing the game and that your information is valid. I come across all the time that not only have they not gone out and checked their information, but a firm's listing on Google is incorrect, and sometimes negatively so. I've also seen cases where other firms, and not necessarily here in this area, but if you don't claim your address, someone else can, and sometimes they'll run their own ads against it. it can be a little frustrating. So it's important that you go out there and you do that. This is part of the content that's on the internet. Now, people ask me, okay, what kind of content do I need to put out there? I mean, besides, just having a website is really like just an empty document. What do you put on it? And a couple of big things that lawyers are doing that come up a lot. So I wanted to, like Alan mentioned, we only have 30 minutes here, a little less than. So I want to make sure that we cover as much of the hot topics as possible. Is video and blogging. And the reason that these are good resources is twofold. One, they're really good at letting your potential client know more about you in terms of who you are and what you do, and also making a connection with you. And also they're out there and they're searchable content. So this also again feeds into that whole content engine of the internet and search engines wondering, are you authoritative and should they return your name when people are searching for your particular profession. And you'll note a couple things that I wanted to make a point here about the video and the blogging. And for video, most people use YouTube as their source. And one of the reasons for that is it is a branch of Google. It's again when people are searching for videos on a auto accident defense, Google's going to show its own content. Also, from the website perspective, these are the kind of things that keep people interested in staying on your site. So it serves two distinct roles in getting you found and keeping the people there. Blogging, on the other hand, helps to keep people engaged all the long term, which is good when we start looking at long-term networking and the effect that has on driving revenues for law firms, especially without the restrictions on direct advertising.
What do you have to spend to get a video that's presentable on a website and on YouTube?
Well, that's the funny thing. A lot of people want to get into a high-budget corporate video, a 3-minute spot that appears on their homepage. But I don't really see those as being very effective because usually what people are doing, again, you need to thinking about your potential client and what he's looking for. And I've even found others who are basically just doing snippets, like little Q&A snippets, answering particular questions of concern, in obviously a very general and appropriate manner. And those are the kind of things that are going to actively engage them, and as well as kind of show you as that particular expert. And those are actually the least expensive ones to usually get. Even the larger studios, and I know a couple, Rocaz is one of the people that I work with. The big corporate ones are always going to be expensive, but doing little snippets in the studio, you can combine them together, and the cost per snippet tends to be a lot lower. Those are the kind of things that people are looking for, engaging. So, I mean, is there a value to the big commercial videos? How do you get them to stay and watch them? You need to have some sort of hook that's going to bring them in. So I usually try to keep them to relatively small bits with direct purpose. And I've even seen folks with doing, the technology has gotten very, very cheap and very, very pervasive to do small headshot videos. You don't need necessarily a significant quality, and many of the people can do it themselves within resources within the firm. Okay.
So it's getting easier and easier to do these things as more and more people are doing them, right?
Absolutely. As the technology becomes pervasive and the price drops out, the other thing is when you talk about editing, I've even seen people do If you're a really good PowerPoint guy, then go with your PowerPoints. Those can easily be turned into videos. And to be honest with you, nearly every 14-year-old I know knows the video editing software out there. So we're not doing the next blockbuster here. We just need a couple of things clipped together.
Right, right. Very interesting.
Now, the next piece that people ask a lot about is social media. Is probably one of the biggest impact and even with Facebook's belly flop and the IPO a couple weeks back, it's still a question of interest. The way I like to look at social media is the same way when we talk about direct networking, and that's another thing that folks do out there to bring business in, and it needs to be considered in that long-term perspective. Yeah, it would be nice to show up at a business networking meeting and the guy 2 seats over has a need for your firm today. But the reason we do networking in the right networking groups, obviously, is to establish a long-term relationship and front-of-mind thought so that when these folks that you're networking with either have a problem, but more importantly, someone else asks them who has a problem, that they are aware of you and can refer you. And that's the same type of thing with social networking or social media, is the idea that you're trying to keep out there in their presence so that when the time comes that they need your services or they need to refer your services, there you are in your format. In both cases, this is a situation where you need to be careful getting in here because there's going to be a tremendous constraint on your time. Like in networking, if you don't show up at every meeting, you don't stay in the forefront of their mind. The same thing with social media. If you don't participate, you don't stay in the forefront of their mind. So you need to be prepared to spend some time or at least get some resources assigned to do that kind of stuff, to do that kind of social media work. It needs to be consistent in moving forward. And as we saw from or may have kind of picked up from the IPO here, it's never always been about Facebook. Facebook has just been one of those early adopter type of solutions. I remember this stuff going back to even pre-MySpace. So you really need to identify which of those platforms are going to give you the most business. I'm working with a wedding venue right now, and we're focusing, although we have a huge Facebook presence, we're trying to figure out what to do with Pinterest since all the brides seem to be on there right now. Don't know if that's going to be actually something that's suitable for a firm, but I do know that a lot of firms who do business-to-business type of work, and their clients are mostly in the business sector, find LinkedIn much more appropriate for doing marketing. And overall, LinkedIn is better geared for social networking and the social networking restrictions that come with being a lawyer and the problems with friending acquaintances and things like that may be looked at from an ethical standard. It's much harder to play with that particular tool. One of the ones that are emerging now is Google+, and Google+ definitely takes that into effect. They've been thinking about how do you restrict access and messages from the get-go because they know they're not just competing against Facebook, they're also competing against LinkedIn, who has a long head start on keeping business people associated with each other. But again, this is the idea. You want to go out there and establish yourself. One of the things that comes up is, you know, I'm very particularly regulated. I mean, if someone will come to me, and this is definitely in the financial industries and other industries that are related, I cannot say or make any types of recommendations or even sometimes give my opinions. How do I, you know, how do I get out there in social media? How do I do blogging? How do I do all this stuff? And one of the things that I say is it doesn't necessarily have to be about your business. One of the advantages of social media is that you can go out there and just establish your presence, and the fact that what you do is secondary. And when those people, as long as they know what you do, you're still in that forefront of their mind when those opportunities come about.
So is LinkedIn pretty much where 80% of this activity is right now for lawyers getting referrals from other lawyers and other professionals, or what are the big three that somebody, you know, in a 3 to 5 lawyer firm would need to try to become adept at and maintain a presence in?
As a business professional or any type of professional, I always recommend LinkedIn. It is really the granddaddy of them all there. It's a great way to put out in a very advertiserial, if you will, a listing of your, you know, who you are and what you do. instead of having friends, you have connections. So there's not this tendency to run into some of the issues that have come out of social media around postings. But also, it's one of those places where people can come and check out who you are from a business perspective, and not worry about interrupting with their social side of it. For lawyers, I really do tend to say, look to LinkedIn to do your business, and lock down Facebook tighter than a drum, and just keep it to your personal interests. Google, again, Google Plus is one of those things where they have tight controls, but again, you're going to have to learn how to manage those so that you can divide your business space from your personal space. But the default is, if you can't do that, then be business only, because you never want this stuff leaking out or interfering with what you're doing on the business side.
Okay, very good advice.
Moving, I think it's a good point to talk about now, next step. So those are kind of the parts that are out there in the moving pieces, if you will, and we're running a little bit low on time here, so I wanted to get out to a couple of quick things.
Okay.
You need to prepare, and by preparing, you need to understand your customer, your potential client, and understand yourself, what it is that you provide, so you have a real clear message, because, again, you're not going to be able to rely on a lot of this stuff being in person. The good news is the majority of what goes on the internet is basically the same data that's in the safe harbor, the ethics reports. If you look at your ethic restrictions, these are things that they're never going to take away your ability to say. Who you are, what you practice in, and where you're located. And that's what drives the majority of what's going on there. There's a perceived expertise by just being a lawyer listed in that area. Enough so that they will hopefully call into your firm and set up an appointment. But as we talked about with the localization of data, it's who you are, what you're doing, where you're at. You'll plan to fail. I mean, this is an obvious one, the whole planning to fail, failing to plan, all that kind of stuff really comes into a factor here. The internet is a huge place. There is a lot of people looking for a lot of things. As much as I know there's a lot of general practitioners out there, just saying lawyer isn't going to cut it. You really need to understand who's out there, what are they looking for, and how that marries up to what you are. More importantly than that, you really need to measure your results against that progress. Once you've targeted a market, you need to measure how well and how effective you are as getting your message to them.
I see.
The good news is there's a lot of tools out there for doing this, and they're almost all free. This is a good slide. You may want to circle this one when it comes around in PDF land. Get on the Google Webmaster Tools, especially Google Analytics. This will flat out tell you what Google is looking for and how well you're doing at providing it. Google Analytics will tell you where your traffic is coming from, how many people are searching on mobile devices, what words they were looking when they were coming to search for you. This is all really important data to go after that marketing plan we just talked about. Local data aggregator, a way to go after your local listings, is a tool here. There's ways of measuring your social impact. And of course, there are search tools like the Google Keyword Tool will help you figure out what people are searching for so that you can target your message to go after those search products. Quick list. What do you do? Go ahead, Alan. Say again.
A lot to know and do.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I mean, the good news is there is a ton of stuff out there. I mean, the material is really, I mean, the search engines tell you how to work the search engines. The Google Webmaster Tools tells you what Google's looking for. You don't have to, you don't have to go by somebody else's opinion, and it's better that you have your own. And that's what I'm going to talk about here in the last slide. What can you do next? Get out there, claim your local listings. The number one thing that every law firm needs to do is for every address that you accept mail, that you have your firm listed with its competencies, throw up a video, throw up some posting some information, but more important, claim that address. Get analytics put on your website. Google Analytics is free. There's other free programs out there. Many website services offer this. You got to know what's going on. And that's also important, is you got to get involved. You really need to know what's happening here. These are, if you feel your business is in decline, you need to validate whether it's just because no one's finding you. And this needs to become essential. This needs to become your marketing focus, your primary marketing focus is. And the good news is with the analytic data out there and the data that Google stores on its own activities, such as who searches for what phrase, which they keep year over year so you can see trends. The data is really out there for you. You just need to figure out the best method for you to tap into it, whether it's something that you do, whether it's someone you assign to it, or whether you hire a third-party vendor. It's very important that you make this an active role for what you're doing.
Wow. Okay, well, it's certainly something that everybody has to do. And we see a lot, our law firm does see a lot of progress in communications and new clients when they look at our social media information. I think they've mentioned that it gave them, that we look credible, and that's an impression for them.
Right. And I talk about this in some of my sales speeches. In order to get your next deal and to get your next client, they're probably going to reach out and touch you somehow 22 to 25 times. Used to be 10 about 5 or 6 years ago. Back last century, it was usually no more than 3. And because there's so much data available on you, they're going to consume it.
Right. Right.
Now, if they reach out and there's nothing there,
right,
you have the opposite problem.
Right. Okay, so Nick, that was a great presentation, a lot of good information. I was looking at your LinkedIn site. It's beautiful, the way you put it. So I hope that people will give you a call, talk to you about what they can do, send you emails about questions, or send Janine or I emails. And we just want to mention, don't forget to tune in with us for the 444 show, our next lunch talk, August 6th, as we just said, and our next 444 show, July 26th, Elder Law Essentials. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And Nick, thanks again for being our guest today.
Have a great day.
You too.